in an interview, for example, if you were hiring me to do event planning, don't hire me to do event planning, and you ask me, Nikki, how would you plan an event? Just walk me through your process to plan an event. I would probably just start answering you and say, well, I'd find out how many people, and then I'd find a space here, and I would, find a good caterer, and I would. Now, right there, that's a red flag, right? Because someone high planned, when you interview them and you say, Whitney, tell me how you would plan an event. So somebody high planned is going to say, what kind of event, for how many people, what's the theme of the event, they're going to have a million questions because there's no way they can start planning an event without having all these questions answered.
Yeah.
So just in that interview, with me kind of winging it and saying, well, I would do this, and then I would do this, and then I would do this, and then hearing somebody else answer that question with a barrage of 50 questions that they have to have answered before they can even start the first step of planning, that should be a red flag then that, my answer sounded fine. I said some of the right things, but it was nowhere near as detail-oriented and nowhere near as thoughtful as somebody who naturally is high-planned, who will ask all those questions. So that's a way to start, thinking about how is that work being done. So for a project manager, you want somebody who knows all those details and who wants all of that precision. If you just start, now, if you're really experienced as a project manager and this is a project you've done a whole bunch of times, then that answer might look to them like, well, in the past when I've planned this, I've had this type of information, so it might not be a series of questions. It might be, in the past when I've done that, I've gathered this information and put together this type of event, and here's how I did it. So it could be an example like that without questions, but clearly you can see, here are all the steps that I did to make this happen in a way that you wouldn't have heard the same precise methodology from me.
So is this almost like an assessment that you would have leaders take and then each of their employees take? Is that how that would usually work?
Yeah, it takes 10 minutes to take, so it's not super extensive. And then everybody gets their report. Usually when I'm working with leaders and teams, everybody gets their report, and then depending on what we're trying to do, I can debrief each person individually, and then usually there's a team event that happens around it, so we can look at, do you have gaps on your team? Is everybody like this, but nobody is like this? Is that working for you? Is that okay? Because sometimes it's okay. And sometimes you need a balance of these different things. What I find is that if you've got one person that's an extreme over here and the rest of the team tends to be over here, the issue is that as human beings, we are storytelling machines, right? So we tell stories to ourselves and about each other to make sense of our world. And we're not really wired for generous stories, right? It wasn't of evolutional benefit to me to tell a nice story about the tiger in the grass over there because the ones that did that are not here today.
Right.
And so I tell the same kind of stories, though, about behavioral patterns that are different than mine because my pattern is so ingrained in me that it doesn't occur to me to go to look for a template. That the story that I can tell is, or the story of someone highly planned talking about me, right, is I don't know why Nikki wants me to fail, right? She keeps giving me an outline. I keep asking her for a plan. I keep getting an outline. She won't give me her plan. Meanwhile, I'm in my office high-fiving myself because something's written down on paper, right? So I don't understand why we have a problem, but you're fuming because I refuse to give you the kind of detail that you need to get.
Yeah.
And so it's that once I can see that, then I can understand, oh, I'm probably making you crazy all the time. So what can I do to slow myself down, to summarize what I think we're agreeing to have you interview me, to get more detail? Because it's not going to spontaneously come out of me, but if you need that detail and you can tell me which details you need, then I can help you get that detail. My brain isn't wired like that. I kind of go from A to Z without a lot of steps in between, and my high planned people like to hit every single step to make sure that it's all right and it's all perfect. On the flip side, if you're stuck because you're analyzing what is perfect, this is the plan, and it's not 100% working, I can step in and say, this is what good enough looks like, and this is what you need to do to just keep us moving forward. Because you can't see that because you're in the details of perfection, and I can see this is really close enough.
Yeah. So two more questions for you. Because as you were talking and going through the assessment, I suspect that probably a big piece of resistance is the time it takes to turn the ship, right? Because depending on how big that vessel is, if you're looking at a startup, okay, you can probably change the direction a little bit quicker. If you've got a Fortune 500 company, like that is a cruise liner, and it's going to take a minute, right? If you're going north to turn that ship around and go south. So how long does the process usually take if you've got folks sitting in the wrong seat and you're like, okay, you got a lot of people over here, we need to move some over here, and then there's gaps that we need to hire?
So I think it kind of depends on how committed are you to making these changes. How committed are you to stopping those quiet quitters and putting them in a place that really makes them light up about the job that they're doing because they're using their gifts, right? I think that might be another place where I'm quiet quitting because I don't get to do any of the things that I'm actually great at here. Like, I'm good enough at these things, so I'll do these things because they're getting the job done, but it's not using my gifts. So one, it's how committed are you to helping people use their gifts and recognizing that and telling more generous stories to and about each other at work. And I think part of the misconception of behavioral change is that it has to be really hard and arduous. If you can help your leaders, to recognize, here are the 5 things that are strengths for this person, and here's how you can set up an environment to get the best out of this person. And you commit to spending a couple of hours to put a plan together for how does our job, the job that you're already doing, link to the things that you're already good at. And then what are special projects or other things that we have going on in the organization that I might be able to link you to. Even just set up a pool that says, hey, if you need brainstorming, put Nikki in that pool, even if she's not in your department, put her in that pool to tap on her because she loves doing that and it's easy for her.